Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're tracking a really major update to what we call the composite illusion thesis. If you're not familiar, that's basically the idea that surface-level noise, the everyday panic and hype, often completely mask the deeper structural realities of where price action is actually heading. Today we're unpacking a rare, incredibly accurate historical market prediction that called the exact contours of our current landscape, literally months in advance. We aren't just reacting to what the market is doing today. We're actually going to dissect a fascinating blueprint that saw this whole thing coming.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to start with our composite illusion update. Then we'll examine the January blueprint, decode the signs of market exhaustion, define the exact correction target, and finally, map out that seasonal buy point.
All right, Section 1, the composite illusion update. Where we stand.
Right now, depending on where you look, the market feels, well, incredibly complex, maybe even totally chaotic, right? Our ongoing analysis of the composite illusion is all about cutting through that daily static to find the underlying structural flow. But here's the catch. To see through today's illusion, we actually have to look backward. The recent volatility, the heavy selling pressure, the timelines we've been navigating, none of this is random. Honestly, it only feels chaotic if you're out there reacting day by day. The truth is, the current market dynamics were mapped out perfectly and mathematically well in advance. So to understand today's action, we have to revisit a very specific structural signal that was caught months ago.
Moving on to Section 2, the January blueprint, a masterclass in foresight.
Let's look at how this builds into the evidence. We are not dealing with vague guessing or broad economic theories here. No way. We're looking at a highly specific time-stamped piece of evidence. I want you to focus entirely on this. Just look at this post made by market analyst James D. Gaverity on Saturday, January 24th. Notice the specific timestamp and really pay attention to that authoritative, data-driven tone. He titled it Short 5-Minute Video Update, Charts Attached, SP 500 Exhaustion. At a time when the broader market was feeling a certain type of way, Gaverity was looking at the underlying charts and seeing a completely different reality. He was looking right past that composite illusion.
Let me read the exact highlighted text from his January 24th post for you. He wrote, "The significance is we're looking at 9 weeks of selling pressure, a move down 9 to 13 weeks, landing right into our seasonal buy point in late March to early April." I just want that to sink in for a second. Let those specific timelines resonate. He didn't just throw out a guess and say, hey, the market might go down. He specified exactly 9 weeks of selling pressure. He gave a precise window of 9 to 13 weeks for the downward move. And maybe most impressively, he pinpointed late March to early April as the exact landing zone.
Which brings us to Section 3, Decoding Market Exhaustion, the Clues Left Behind.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that you don't make a call with that level of precision just based on a gut feeling, right? You do it by decoding the technical clues left behind by institutional money. The absolute core of his thesis relied on what's known as a TD13 exhaustion signal. In technical analysis, this is a very specific, mathematically driven indicator. It essentially signals that a prevailing market trend has reached its absolute peak. Basically, the buyers have climbed the hill, but they are fundamentally exhausted. The tank is empty. There's literally no new money coming in to push prices higher. In his post, Gaverity noted they had another TD13 exhaustion signaling a market top, and he explicitly compared this setup to a similar pattern we saw back in December 2024. He stated clearly, the buyers were simply exhausted.
But here's the thing. He didn't just rely on one single metric, and that is absolutely crucial for robust analysis. Gaverity pointed out confirming divergences across the board, in the stochastics, the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, and the underlying price action itself. Now, a divergence basically means the surface-level price might still be trying to inch higher, but the underlying momentum indicators are actively breaking down. It's like a car engine sputtering out before the vehicle actually rolls to a stop. Because of these confirming signals, he confidently stated that we shouldn't expect any major new highs over the next 9 weeks.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates the depth of his analysis. He looked inside the daily internals of the market and saw this massive glaring split. The Mag 8, those 8 massive mega-cap tech stocks that heavily weight the indices, had entered oversold territory on a sell setup 9. But meanwhile, the SP 492, which is the rest of the S&P 500, was sitting in a buy setup 9. They were literally pulling in completely opposite directions. Gaverity used this exact internal tug-of-war to confirm his expectation of sideways, choppy market action. The market just couldn't push higher because its biggest engines and its broader base were completely out of sync.
All right, Section 4, the correction target, precision in the noise.
So with the exhaustion clearly signaled and those internal divergences mapped out, Gavrity set a very specific downside target right in the middle of all that daily market noise. In that exact same January 24th post, after outlining all the heavy selling pressure, he boldly stated his target. He wrote, "How great it will be to finally get a nice 10% correction to buy again." See, he wasn't calling for a total market crash, and he wasn't calling for a minor little dip either. He specifically targeted a healthy, normal, but very noticeable 10% plus correction.
So the crucial point here is understanding the grind of this market action. Gavrity recognized that the market was transitioning away from a momentum-driven phase and slamming into a harsh seasonal reality. His quote, "Don't expect any major new highs over the next 9 weeks, if any. Seasonality wants to rule," captures this perfectly. He knew this 10% drop wasn't going to happen overnight in some straight-line crash. It was going to be a protracted, frustrating grind, ruled strictly by seasonality over a 9-week window.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, the seasonal buy point, mapping the timeline. Let's just take a step back and look at how all these clues culminate into this highly specific timeline he laid out. First, he recognized the initial TD13 setup and the sideways action tracing all the way back to December 2024. Then, on January 24th, he publishes his blueprint post, officially calling the top. After that, he specifically references February 20th as the point where things rolled over for a great seasonal short. And the ultimate destination for all of this? A designated seasonal buy point in late March to early April. Step by step, he mapped the exhaustion, the rollover, and the exact window for the ultimate low. This timeline is amazing because it completely rejects the emotional, panicky reacting of the broader market. Instead of freaking out at every red day, this shows the absolute power of trusting structured seasonal analysis to tell you exactly where the market is headed well before it ever gets there.
So what does this all mean for us now? It leaves us with a really fascinating and frankly vital question. If technical exhaustion signals and deep seasonal analysis can map the trajectory of the market so perfectly, literally months in advance, what is the composite illusion telling us to prepare for next? As we enter that late March to early April window, what new signals are the charts printing today that the rest of the world won't even realize until the summer? Well, that is exactly what we'll be covering in our next update. Keep your eyes on the data, trust the structure, and keep learning. I'll see you next time.